Good morning, everyone. My name is Jetta, and I am your service host today. So I'd really love to say welcome to all of you that are here in person, and for those of you who are joining us online. Again, thank you for choosing SCF to spend your Sunday morning. We value your decisions. First thing, I'd love to give you a couple hints for those of us who are joining online. We have the online host. Her name is Susie. She is your Facebook connection. If you're coming in through Facebook, she has posted links and she has posted things for you. You can converse with her. And again, this is for those of you who want to connect. We have something called Meet Up. Meet Up is an opportunity for you to be in connection with us and other Christ followers as you journey through this life. Please hit that Meet Up button if you're feeling that would be a great next first step. So please, even if you are one of the people that maybe been here for a while and you would love to connect, that's a great place to start. Again, we want to remind you that we have First Wednesday coming. It is the first Wednesday of every month. It will be March 3rd at 7 p.m. We encourage you to come and enjoy in the fun and fellowship and stories. We love to hear where God is working in your life. So come share it with us. And again, bring a friend. We have childcare available if you have children 5 years and younger. Again, for those of you who are looking and joining us online, in the SCF app, there's lots of places for you to discover what events and what community events we've got going, as well as ministries. There's the prayer button. There's the give button. So if those are your next steps, you really want to become involved, please click on those. Again, we're so thrilled to have you today, and we would love for you now to stand up and join us in worship. And again, please be mindful. Please keep your mask on at all times, and remember social distancing. Thank you. I'll see you at the end of the service.
Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me. You know his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free. His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free. are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. And you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, and you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the wind. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. And you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, and you are good, you're good. Oh, and you are good, you're good. Oh, you're never gonna let me down. 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 If you believe that, sing it out. You're never gonna let, come on, church, you're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. No, we won't. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. 'Cause you I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. In all my days, I've been held in your hand. From the moment that I wake up until I lay in my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running out, it's running after me. Your goodness is running out, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running out, it's running after me. Your goodness is running out, it's running after me. Your goodness is running out, it's running after me. With my life laid down, surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running out, it's running after me. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God.
Thank you so much for worshiping with us. You can be seated.
Hi SCF, my name is Whitney and I help with connections here at SCF. And I want to talk to you about something that we offer called Meet Us. Meet Us is an opportunity to kind of get familiar with the church. It's an opportunity to meet some other people, to ask questions, and to get an overview of the mission and the ministries here at SCF. The reason that we do this is because we talk a lot about the idea of choosing community, because following Jesus is not a solo sport. It's something we do alongside other people. We want your connotation of church to not be a building, to not be a service, and to not be a program. We want it to be names and faces. We want it to be a family that you are on mission with as we follow Jesus together and carry out his commandments on the earth. And so if you're looking for that next step, a way to choose community, join us for the next Meet Us. I would love to have you for it.
Good morning. How y'all doing? Excellent, excellent. I get Numbers, the book of Numbers, which if you're going through with us, which if you started and it got a little overwhelming, you can just pick up where we're at now. We're going to be reading Numbers 1 through 13. The interesting part about the book of Numbers is the title tells us what it's all about. It's about counting. They count all the people in the tribes. They design how the tribes are going to set themselves up around a tabernacle, which is nothing more than the temple that was in Jerusalem. But before that, it was a tabernacle, which was a tent that moved with them. And so God had 3 tribes on the north, 3 tribes on the west, 3 tribes on the south, and 3 tribes on the east as they moved out. And so they talk about that in the beginning of Numbers. They talk a little bit about the priests. They talk about trumpets. They talk about how do we know when we're supposed to start moving and various things like that. That's basically an overview of it. But what's interesting is right at the end of Numbers 13, starting in chapter 11, they start dealing with some of the problems that's happened along the journey, which is well over a year now, along the journey that they have been taken. There are these problems that have come up. And what I'm going to say, and I'm sure it's already been covered with in Exodus, Jason dealt with that, but we're going to deal with the fact that when the people stepped out of line, God did kill some of them. Now, I'm just going to say this in Luke 12:48. But someone who does not know and that does something wrong will be punished only lightly. When someone has been given much, much will be required in return. And when someone has been entrusted with much, even more will be required. So basically what the premise is, and it's mentioned in Psalm 95, the same thing is mentioned, that the degree that we know who God is and how he operates and what he does, we have a higher degree of responsibility because we know. Now, in their area back then, they lived through the 10 plagues, which was an attack on the 10 of the gods. They had multiple gods, more than 10, but dominant gods in Egypt. They lived through that, so they literally saw God's very work. They went through the Red Sea and they saw God's very work. God provided water along the journey. They've literally seen God's work. So they've seen God's work. They've seen God's glory, which none of us have ever seen. All of this has taken place on their journey. And as a result of that, since they have seen that which nobody else had seen, no one has even come close to seeing this kind of stuff until the time of Jesus Christ. And as a result of that, these people had been shown much, and God said, certain level that we live with here. And so you're going to understand, I can't explain why these things, this is how God responded. But I do know that since they had seen so much, they had best be careful in how they complained to God. That's not us. We haven't seen Jesus. We haven't seen the Old Testament. So I'm not too sure God's going to smite anybody today. I mean, I have a short list of who I wish God would smite, but I'm pretty sure those same people would have me on their list, so I don't think that's going to work. Anyway, here's one of the things I find fascinating in Numbers 13. This is one of the things I love about it. On the day the tabernacle was set up, the cloud covered it. But from evening until morning, the cloud over the tabernacle, so it was a cloud providing shade in the daytime, looked like a pillar of fire. This was the regular pattern. At night, the cloud that covered the tabernacle had the appearance of a fire. Whenever the cloud lifted from over the sacred tent, the people of Israel would break camp and follow it. And whenever the cloud settled, the people of Israel would set up camp. In this way, they traveled and camped at the Lord's command whenever he told them to go. Then they remained in their camp as long as the cloud stayed over the tabernacle. I don't know if you've ever prayed for what is God's will in my life, but these people never had to pray for that. Because as long as the cloud sat over the tabernacle, they say, we're staying here. But then when the cloud starts moving, they gathered everything up. They had a certain group of people they talk about who would take the temple down and carry it along the way. And that was how they journeyed. Well, as it gets to the very end of this chapter, we start seeing the difficulty. We start seeing the struggles that they had to deal with. And we're going to talk about those this morning. The very first one that we see is called the difficulty of stress. The difficulty of stress. Does anyone know anything about that? I mean, it just doesn't apply to anyone? Okay. I was just wondering. Difficulty of stress. It says this in Numbers 11:1. Soon the people began to complain about their hardship. That was their journey. And the Lord heard everything they said. The Lord's anger blazed against them, and he sent a fire to rage among them and destroyed some of the people in the outskirts of the camp. Boy, I'm glad God doesn't respond that way to us. Because I know people, I want to see the glory of God. I want to see his miracles. No, you don't. No, you don't. Be thankful he hasn't shown you that. But here's the interesting part to me. They've been on a hard journey for over a year. And they're stressed. They're complaining. Does that relate to us at all? You know, like COVID? Like all your smiling faces that I can't see? Yeah. We've been under that. And I think one of the things that perhaps we are not that aware of is what stress can do to us. What stress can do to us. And we've been under a sustained stress. Now, if that was all the stress we had, then this would be much easier. But unfortunately, we live in a world that's broken, and we work with, live with, do recreation with people who are also broken, because we're all broken. And that does not necessarily bring out the best. So when I was starting my master's program down in LA at Talbot, I went to my first class, and they gave us this thing called the Holmes Ray Life Stress Inventory. And what this happened, this came up much earlier. I mean, this has been around for a long time and has been recognized as valid. What they do is they take there's about 43 life events, and they assign a value to it. And if you end up with 150 points or less, then you have low susceptibility to stress-related health problems. In case you don't know, that stress's dominant thing that it does in a human's life is produce health-related problems. Mental, absolutely, but health-related problems. So anyway, if you get 150 to 300, it implies that you have a 50% chance of a major stress-related health problem in the next 2 years. If you're over 300 points, the odds are 80% according to Holmes Ray predictions. When I took the test, I ended up with 480, and the teacher said, "Oh, you must have added wrong." And I said, "I don't think so." I said, My aunt died. My wife lost her mother and her grandmother, the three spiritual leaders, the dominant spiritual leaders on my wife's side of her family. My wife was pregnant when we moved, and we moved. All of these. So I'm going to read through some of these just to let you know the level of stress. Obviously, the death of a spouse is right up there with 100. So you're almost over to 150 or more just to start with. Divorce, 71. Jail, 63. A close family member, 63. Major personal illness, 53. Here's my favorite one, number 7. Marriage, 50. 50, 50, 50. Oh, the wonders of marriage. Being fired, 47. Hey, marital reconciliation with mate, 45. Retirement from work, 45. Pregnancy, 40, just to start with. Just a business adjustment, 39. Death of a close friend, 37. Taking on a mortgage, 31. Son or daughter leaving home, 29. I mean, it's initially 29. Then in about 4 months, it's a plus 100. It's a negative 100 because they're gone. And you're going, yes, negative 100. No, I'm just making that up. Trouble with boss, 23. Changes in residence, 20. Major changes in church activities. This isn't even a Christian thing. 19. Change in sleeping habits are in the 16s. A vacation, 13. Major holidays, how many of those are there? Just add 12 for every single one of them. And if you get a minor violation of the law, that is 11. You see, if you add all those up, and there's, as I said, 43, I think, on this, you will discover that you probably have an exceedingly high level of stress. And when these people complained because of their stress, because of the hardships, stress, that they had on their journey, things didn't go well. And in our life, I can tell you, things don't go well. Things don't go well when you live under a lot of stress. Not that it was totally stress in my life, but my, 24 or 25 surgeries I've had, more orthopedic in nature, but perhaps things failed more because of the level of stress I had throughout my careers. Probably. Stress that I had. Well, if I'm talking about the difficulty of stress, I just don't want to leave it there for you. What I want to tell you about is, since this is Old Testament, we're in the New Testament era, which means we have the New Testament, we have what Jesus taught, we had what the disciples who were trained by him and the disciples who were called by him, like Paul, wrote to the other churches. We have a ton of resources that can help us with stress in our life. This is one of my favorite verses. It's in Matthew 11, 29 through 30. I've quoted this throughout my life. He says, "Take my yoke upon you, let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your soul. For my yoke is easy to bear, and my burden I give you is light." What I want to say about that is the word for rest here is ceasing from activity that results in a feeling of refreshing tranquility in the absence of tension or worry. Let me ask you, when was the last time you had that? You see, that's what Jesus says, that if we take his yoke, which means we're going to be hooked up with him, and we're going to journey the way he would journey if he was in our shoes. But if I have a high degree of stress, it's a sure marker to me, and should be to all of us, that we're doing our own thing. If I have a lot of it. I mean, all these markers come in that we can add up, and it's doing damage. But there's real questions is how many of those points that we attribute end up coming from the way we handle our lives. We handle our lives, or things outside of our control. And Jesus clearly says, let me teach you, I am humble and gentle. Our God is humble and gentle. And he says, I'll give you rest for your soul, not for your body. I gave you the Sabbath, which was talked about a couple weeks ago. 2 weeks ago with Jason. Rest for your body. That's what Sabbath rest is about. But for our soul, he says, take my yoke upon you. And maybe this is the difficulty. There are 4 of them. You get to pick one of them at the end of this teaching that you want to work on. And maybe yours is stress. Anyway, they kept going on, even though, now get this, the reason I shared about the cloud and the fire, every single day when they got up, they would look out their tents and say, God's here. Visible demonstration. God's here. And yet they still complained. You see, people always think that, gosh, if I was around when Jesus were here, then things would be different in my life. No, they wouldn't. It wasn't for the people of Israel. They complained. Fire at night, cloud in the daytime for shade, and when it moved, time to go. And they complained. The second difficulty is the difficulty of want. Of want. It says this. I love this. So apparently when the Jews left Israel, some of the Egyptians went with them. But this is how they're described. Then the foreign what? Rabble. Rabble, that's a good word. The foreign rabble who were traveling with the Israelites began to crave the good things of Egypt, and the people of Israel also began to complain. Oh, for some meat, they explained. So this is the difficulty of want. They had been eating manna for a year, God's kind of bake shop that he put together for them. It probably was totally nutritious. I mean, it's probably one of the wildest diets ever because that's all they had, that and water. And if God gave it to them, it's probably the healthiest stuff that's out there at that time. Actually, even in our time, it was the healthiest stuff out there. And what they said was, because the foreign rabble started them thinking, I want more than I have. Now, let me just explain something to you, because we are in a stressful time with COVID. I will give you a warning that will help you tremendously. If there are people in your life who are always panicking or always worried or always coming up with conspiracy theories about COVID, stay clear of them. Stay clear. Because the foreign rabble started complaining, and then some of the Jews heard them, and they go, yeah, they're right. They're right. And all of a sudden, they started wanting more. You see, this is what I've discovered during this season, this time period, is it's real easy when you're stuck at home or not being able to do what you want, it is so easy to start longing for other stuff. in your life. It's so easy to become dissatisfied with where you're at. I mean, I've literally in my mind over the last year plus, in my mind I've bought several vehicles. I now have a vacation home. I don't know where it is, so I can't get there, but I have it. There's just things. When we have a limited intake, they had a limited intake. We have to be careful because it's easy at that time when you have a limited intake or a limited amount of time or a limited amount of things you can do, and on. Want can grow in your life and mine. Want can grow in your life and mine. And the problem with that is it is diametrically opposed to who God is. It's diametrically opposed. So you can do it in your mind, you can do it through magazines, you can do it. Like, I'm pretty sure I have bought a tonal that goes on your wall to exercise, and that new cool bike. What is that one? Peloton. Yeah, how'd you know it? Because it's advertised all the time. How can you not? And I kept saying, my wife loves pictures, so we don't have many open wall spaces. And I go, which ones would I take down to put my tonal up? And when is my daughter and son-in-law and grandson going to move out so I can put my Peloton downstairs? I think that. And I get lost in that fantasy. And when I have those two things, you can't believe the shape I'd be in. Sure, I have a gym membership, but at home, way easier. And it's better for the environment. I'm not driving to my workout club. Way better for the environment. It seems like God would want me to have it. The problem is we all start to crave for other things. It says this out of Philippians. And this same God who takes care of me will supply all of your needs from his glorious riches, which have been given to us in Christ Jesus. The idea is, the picture of this idea to supply is this picture of, it's pictured as a filling of a container to its full. My God will supply all of our needs. And a need is this, it's anything that is necessary. It is anything that is necessary. The problem is, we live in America, and every one of us has been exposed. Every one of us has been exposed to want. Commercials basically feed on us by doing commercials that make us feel less than if we don't have their product. I mean, I've seen that Peloton commercial, even with the volume turned off. Why are any of them working out? They're all in great shape. Don't they get to take a break? Where are some people like me working out? Well, that won't sell anything. He's not going to sell anything for us. No, they put these stellar, good-looking, chiseled people. And I'm just going, what a waste of time for you guys. Because there's no challenge if you're in shape. Anyway, I bought up this great prop and I didn't even use it. Yeah, what the heck? That's what happens with me. So anyway, the difficulty of want. Have you found craving increasing in your life? It could be for things. It could be for stuff, maybe to put in your body. It could be a variety of things. I can't tell you how many people have craved a relationship, and when they found it, it ended up in time being disastrous. I had a gal I was talking with in the oral surgeon. I lost a tooth, and they had to pull out the root this week on Monday. I was just talking with the gal as I was waiting for the doctor after he shot up my mouth. And I said, hey, are you married? And she goes, no, I just got out. She goes, I'm having a divorce. And I go, really? How'd that come about? I go, forgive me, my wife tells me I ask questions I shouldn't ask of complete strangers. And she goes, oh, that's okay. She goes, I'm a bad picker. I go, have you always picked wrong? Yes. Huh. I was a pastor for 38 years and did a lot of counseling. I was wondering if she'd say, hey, maybe you could help me, because I probably could. But the interesting part was, as I think about it, was she wants something, and every time she gets it, because she's doing it on her own terms, it turns out poorly. And the problem is, my God, who takes care of me, who takes care of you, will, that's a promise, supply all of your needs, not wants, needs, from the glorious riches of Christ Jesus. That's the difficulty of want. And maybe that's what you're struggling with during this time of COVID, during the hardship of the journey you're on today. The next one, this is an interesting one for me. It's the difficulty of who's in charge. Who's in charge? The difficulty of who's in charge. While they were at Hazeroth, Miriam and Aaron was the spokesperson for Moses, Miriam was his wife, criticized Moses because he had married a Cushite woman. He married her when he was 40 years in the wilderness, married, had kids. Then he came out, called by God to deliver the nation. So this had been around for a while. They said, has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Hasn't he spoken through us? But the Lord heard them. And then it makes this statement in parentheses. Oh, it's parentheses in mine. Oh, you have a dash. Now, Moses was very humble, more humble than any other person on earth. You see, I'm a firm believer that you are called into ministry. You are called into being a pastor. It's not something that you can't make it in anything else. And you go, it looks easy to be a pastor. I love to talk. I'll do that. I can't tell you how many people have done that. I can't tell you how many people have done that and are in churches, and they're doing their churches harm. They're not called. Well, anyway, I was at a Bible Institute. I had gone to UNR for 2 years. I started following Christ during my probably in my sophomore year of college. And I took a break because since I was 10, this is honest, I would say this in school, and they go, what do you want to be when you grow up? I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a lawyer to help underprivileged people who don't get a good representation. That's what I wanted to do my whole life. That's what I wanted to do. I mean, it was set. I had 2 presidents of law schools that said, when you want to get in, you're in. I go, what about the LSAT? It doesn't matter. You're in. McGeorge and Bolt at Berkeley. And so I had things paved, and I take this Bible Institute. I go for a semester. They're studying the Old Testament. I wanted to know my Bible better for some reason. And it was about 40 students, and it was down in right outside of San Antonio in Comfort, Texas. And people in the church were connected with it, and that's how I found my way there. And when they were studying Numbers, I read this right before lunch in the class where it says, now Moses was humble, more humble than any other person on earth, period. Parentheses, Moses didn't put it in. And I sat in that room, I go, this is impossible. He is the most powerful human on earth right now. Well, God is through him, but still, he's the most powerful person. He stretched the staff out and the sea parted. How can the most powerful person also be the most humble person? Class dismissed. They headed to lunch. I couldn't get out of my seat. I was just going, God, what is this? I have no clue. And then I was just stunned. I walked out. I got about 10 yards out, gravel road, gravel path, and I was standing there. And in that moment of time, I sensed clearly the calling of God to do what I'm doing because of that verse. Because I didn't understand it, and I still don't. It makes no sense that the most powerful man on earth is the most humble man on earth. And it wasn't like he called me to do that or be that person. Well, he probably would like me to be more humble, but he got some rough material to work with. And here's the interesting part. Who's in charge in your life? Let me give you a simple principle. It's a transferable principle. God says you cannot love God and hate your brother. I'm not talking your brother and sister, someone in the church. Let's just say your neighbor. First, go love your neighbor. Then you will love God. So if you're a racist, you don't love God because he says so. This is in 1 John. You just don't. If you are spreading junk about someone on your Facebook page or with your friends, you do not love God. It's the very words of God himself who says that to you, not me. If I don't love the person I know, the people I know well, I can't love God. I'm not loving God. Well, this is transferable because it has to do with authority also. It has to do with authority. If you can't submit to authority in your life, whether it's a boss, whether it's the church you're at, then you're not submitting to the authority of God. It's just like love. If I'm not doing it in the visible world, then I can't do it in the spiritual world. And I can't tell you how many people I know, they're kind-looking people, nice-looking people, but they only want to do things their way. And when I've seen these people, I've always said to myself a few things I don't want to get real close to them because that could wear off on me. I might become like that. I want to avoid that. Nice people, mean people, it's people you don't really even would suspect. They are calling the shots in their life all the time. The bummer here is when Miriam and Aaron challenged him, all God did, because it was the two of them, is he gave leprosy to Miriam, which excludes her from the camp. For challenging Moses, God defended him. And then the humble guy begs God to heal her. And she had to go through the process of being healed and then the process of waiting. It's a journey. I mean, it's a long time. It takes months before she could reunite with the tribe of Israel. This is what it says in the New Testament. And further, submit to one another. It actually says, submit to the elders, for they watch over your soul. And when people teach up here, they're teaching on behalf of the elders. So if I'm doing my own thing, I'm not going to do that one. Then there is no way you are yielding yourself to Jesus Christ. You can't. Per God's spiritual principles. You just can't. And further, submit to one another. And then it says this, out of reverence for Christ. The reason I submit to others isn't because they're worthy, isn't because they're the best at what they're doing. I submit to another person because of my reverence for Christ. What that reverence means is a feeling of profound respect. Not just respect, this is profound. Respect for someone, something, or a deity. So the question is, do I respect God enough to humble myself? Do I respect God enough when he gives a command? Here's a big command. I always use this one because I always get a lot of people with it. Honor God with your finances. And you're going to say, I can't. I don't want to. That's fine. No one's holding a gun to your head. Just know. Take any of those commands that are mentioned, I don't know, over 100 times in the Bible. Any of them. And if you choose not to do it, then you cannot be submitted to God and allowing him to be in charge of your life. You're running the show yourself. That's what it teaches biblically. And the last one is difficulty of the future. They get to the promised land. Before they go over, they send 12 men over to spy it out. They go over there and spy it out. And when they come back, there were 12 men, one from each tribe. 10 gave a negative report. 2 gave a positive report. Okay? It goes like this. But the other men who had experienced the land with him disagreed. They're talking about Caleb and Joshua. We can't go up against us. They are stronger than we are. They forgot about the parting of the Red Sea, of course. The greatest army at the time were the Egyptians, not these rabble tribes. The land we traveled through and explored will devour anyone who goes to live there, and all the people we saw were huge. This is pure fear about the future. Are huge. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers, and that's what they thought too. And so these men give a bad report. The entire nation of Israel takes theirs rather than the 2 guys that said, hey, God can do this for us. And the entire nation of Israel complained so loudly, God said, you're going back in the wilderness, and not one of you over 18 will ever go into the promised land because you would not trust me. You have seen my miracles. You've seen my miracles. How can you not trust me? You've seen the very manifest glory of God over the tabernacle, telling you when to move. Why won't you do that? And I just want you to understand something. Stress is huge when we are worrying about our future. It's not the best way to live our life. And if you're worrying about the future, I love what Jesus says. He says this, so don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. Today's troubles is enough for today. I love it, because you know what it says? We'll always have troubles. Welcome. This is reality. Christianity is Christianity is the one religion that deals with reality, and their God does too. Jesus said, don't worry about tomorrow, but that's all I worry about. I know. Maybe you should go back to the first one. Do you have his yoke upon you? Is he in charge? Don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. So there'll be problems tomorrow? Yeah, broken world, broken people. 1 + 1 = 2. Today's trouble is enough for today. God can help you through today's trouble. He can't help you through imaginary problems. Not that his power is short. He can only help us in the present. Who knows this the best on our planet? Recovery people. You take one step at a time. You don't take one day at a time. Every time I talk to them, I love it. I love talking to recovery people. One day at a time? I always say that. Sometimes it's 1 second at a time, Scott. I always love hearing that answer. It's 1 second. How do you worry about tomorrow? You have a God who tells us not to. We have a God that says he will take care of us. The question is, are you in God's hands or are you in yours? And I'll tell you one thing, the best way to work through these things is if you're in community with other people. Other people in my life have pointed out areas that I needed to change that I could not see. And I am better for those conversations. And I just want to know this Sunday that there's a God who won't give you anything that you can't handle with Jesus Christ, yoked together with Jesus, walking your journey with him. And you will not have worry about tomorrow. And you will discover, as we read, a refreshing, freeing experience of the rest that he promised. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we're all on a journey, and this is our hardship. It's us. It's just not us in this room. It's everybody in the world. And of the rest of the world, we're in a far better place than third world countries who are faced with this, with no doctors or hospitals around. And yet, Father, we are very similar to the Jews on their journey. We are very similar at this point in time with what they were experiencing. God, I would ask us all to open ourselves up to you, to ask us to open up the earlids of our soul to hear from you, to read your word, to allow it to go in and change the way we think. It washes our brain. And let us see that worry of tomorrow is really just fantasy. Today is the only day I know how to deal with this moment. And I ask for your strength for each and every one of us. In Jesus' name, amen. You know, just as a follow-up question at the end of it, I would encourage you, obviously, I talked about groups, that's important. But also, I just want you to think about the four and pick one of them and say, God, this is the one I really need to work on. This is what you said to me in the service. So please, come in. And let's have Jetta back up. Oh, there you are, Jetta. Come on up.
Thank you. Wow, big questions. I hope that you have chosen yours, I've chosen mine, and I hope that those questions do not leave you and that it goes with you throughout the entire week because it is very powerful. Wow. Thank you again. Number one, if you are here in person, we would love to meet up with you under the crosses. Whitney and I will be there, and that is a great first step in discovering and asking questions about who SCF is, who we are, and what community means to SCF. The next thing is I would like for all of you to understand that your ushers are going to dismiss you from the back to the front, and we're all going to exit to the right. Again, don't forget the question, especially as you're waiting for your turn to leave. Think on those things. Wow, there's so many ways that stress impacts us. So don't miss out on that. Don't miss out on the learning. Thank you for joining us today. Have a blessed week, and I'll see you under the crosses.